Bijan likes. No, but I do. This was an awesome result. I think this is a new SVG test that we've just found. Anthropic has released Claude Opus 4.5, which based off of some of the benchmark graphics in this release post is the most powerful coding model now, which is always good to see because then I can justifiably use that in clickbait in the article title. But regardless of that, let's just take a quick look at this article. But seeing that this is a state-of-the-art model release, I think it is prudent to just basically spend the whole video reading this article and not actually doing anything with the model. So let's jump into it. I am just kidding, by the way, but we're going to look over a few things here that are kind of cool. So first and foremost, it is very interesting because Gemini 3 Pro just came out and basically wowed everybody, but now Anthropic has gone ahead and released something that seems to perform significantly better than it, although this chart maybe, we have to keep in mind that this chart starts at 70 and only goes up to 82, so the differential between some of these bars is perhaps a bit exaggerated, and I don't know that that's really necessary to do when it is clearly beating these hypothetically, but I'm totally nitpicking here. So in terms of actual usability statistics, they do mention something about pricing here for those who use it through the API. This is something to note, where it is now $5 per million input tokens and $25 per million output tokens, making it more accessible to users, teams, and enterprises. There is a first impression section here where this paragraph basically says our Anthropic colleagues said it was fantastic, as one would perhaps expect the folks actually working there to say about the model. But then we have a bunch of different, there's like 21 separate cards here of fantastic feedback for this model from a bunch of companies who use it in agentic coding scenarios, so that is very cool and exciting to see. There are some evaluations and things of that sort. They're more benchmark JPEGs essentially, but it shows like it is very, very competent in agentic coding. So I'm very excited for some of the tests we're going to be doing here. And this is something cool that I actually like to see, where they show its capabilities across a wide variety of different languages. This is not just using Python or HTML or CSS or something like that. So maybe we'll try some more exotic languages in some of our testing. And really, there's just kind of a few concerning behavior. It's not, I mean, this is a real, concern, no pun intended. Let's now hop over to Claude, where it is telling me it's late night, ominous. Obviously from Ominous Industries, where you can get yourself a Jetson-powered social robot, bring your own Jetson. So let's go ahead and swap over. We have Opus 4.5 selected, and for this testing, I will keep extended thinking on for everything that we try. A lot of folks said they want to just see the models at full potential, and that totally resonates with me, so let's just hop into it. I know you might roll your eyes because I'm starting with the browser operating system test, but I am just honestly curious to see how it does. We will get into more intricate and complicated tests following this one, but I'm just curious. So, all right, let's go ahead and see what it does. Now, I do believe I saw somewhere some mention of increase in speed. I may be hallucinating that fact myself, but overall the speed here does seem to be relatively sufficient. And again, of course, just to note that we do have extended thinking enabled, and we have Opus 4.5 selected. All right, let's take a look at our browser operating system. I have not yet looked at it because I didn't let the artifact window show it. Okay, overall, this is a acceptable result. I do have to say I like the gradient. That is a color palette that appeals to me personally. Something I noticed that it did say it has is a right-click menu in the desktop, which is, again, something relatively rare to see. We do have a clock down here, and it is clickable. Okay, these are all things that I've complained about prior, so interesting. This is good. 72 degrees, not quite. Okay, but just the fact that that actually does something. We have some emojis showing us system statistics like Wi-Fi signal and battery, and display settings, night mode, okay, animations, hardware acceleration, background apps, nicely featured. Full screen does work. I know people said I spend too much time on these because I do enjoy them, but I'll try to make it quicker. This is a significantly large amount of applications here. Photos, okay, beautiful. And the windows, the icon here is a window emoji. About WebOS 1.0.0. All right, someone had clarified in the comments why these don't work, but I will say this browser is actually probably one of the best looking ones I've received to date in this test. Okay, so overall, this was probably one of the most competent results I've received in terms of everything looking fairly nice. The only thing that blatantly seems to have not worked, unless that is the actual icon it chose, is the terminal icon. Looking closely at that now, I do believe that may actually be the icon it chose to use. It had some nice features. The browser, while non-functional, did look very aesthetically pleasing. A clickable clock with a incorrect but existing weather menu and the ability to right click. All right, because they showed so prominently its ability to perform very well across multiple different programming languages, I feel it is prudent to explore some different languages in this test beyond just the general web-based thing. So we're going to ask it using C++, generate a 3D racing game with the following specific features: first-person driver view from inside the car, a steering wheel that turns in combination with the key that is pressed that would kind of reflect the steering wheel being turned, a low-poly graphical style reminiscent of early rally games, emphasis on scenery, a track containing elevation changes, which is something that I want to do to challenge it, because rather than just a flat plane, it will then have to actually deal with some math in terms of the elevation going up and down, a stylized menu, and then just some instructions on how the game should start by first showing the menu, and the menu should be accessible throughout the game by pressing the escape key. I am genuinely curious to see how many lines this was, because it was relatively lengthy seemingly. All right, so we're right around 1,632 lines of syntax, so keep that in mind when we judge this result, but I do expect to be impressed. All right, let's check out our Rally Racer game. All right, it did load very quickly. We can minimize the terminal window here. Wow, those mountains are quite excited. I do have to say, first and foremost, I am digging the aesthetic that it is chosen here. Let's just go ahead and full screen this. All right, let's start. Okay, it is... I need a second to kind of parse the result. Look at that track elevation. Oh my goodness. This isn't bad, to be honest with you. It may look kind of janky and ratty. Did I just see a... Oh. Okay, I'm not 100% sure what happened there. We definitely had a elevation mishap, but it did go ahead. It made a track. It has trees. It has a map. Everything looks kind of... We did ask it to inspire itself in designing this from like an old school rally game, so I can totally see how it would have gone ahead and have done that here. But again, the whole point of this was to test it in a different language. So, oh, for a second there, it almost seems... Okay, so there does seem to be an opponent. For a second, I saw a steering wheel, so something seems to not quite be rendering properly here. Let's try the escape key. Okay, very cool. Up and down, select icon, and we can do that. So, all right. Overall, I'm satisfied with this result because, well, it worked. It wasn't the best, but it did work. So perhaps this is something we can implement into some more coding-specific focused model testing, is having them try this specific prompt in this specific language to see how the results compare. Not bad. And then let's just exit. Solid. Now let's try some Python. We're asking it for a 3D first-person shooter game in Python, with a functional minimap, visible effects for ammunition when you actually shoot, a functional player health bar, a stylized game menu with the following options, and the game should begin by showing the menu as it did with our previous C++ rally game test. It does unfortunately seem like we have received a result that is not working on first try, which is crazy, but that's actually rare now when testing at least state-of-the-art models. So this is somewhat disappointing. I don't want, well, this would be a fail, I suppose, if we were doing a comparison test with different models. However, I don't want to not be able to see the results, so we're going to vibe code fix this by just basically giving it this. All right, so I just told it what was wrong and asked it to fix it. Okay, good. It did initially load into the menu. Okay. So, all right, well, it's quite abstract, I guess. So it's frustrating. It did correctly kind of do some of what we asked in terms of being able to actually see the ammunition coming at you. I am able to shoot and see some of my own ammunition. There is a health bar. Now, I'm not honestly seeing a minimap, but I do believe that may be due to a coloring issue, because it does seem like there may be a minimap in the top right. Overall, I am I have to say disappointed in this result. And because I don't know to what extent having extended thinking enabled as well as just using this specific model will affect the usage allotment that I have, I want to try a bunch of other stuff as well. So I'm not going to have it try to fix that in an additional way. But overall, that was probably one of the more disappointing tests that I've tried with this so far. I want to try something that's just totally whack. So here's the photo of myself with the Honda Beat. I'm going to give this to the model and say, recreate this using ASCII Art. I genuinely have no idea how this will turn out. I suppose we could also do an SVG test with that, which I will do. Car. Okay, gas. Legs. Miata. Oh, okay, it was drawing the background there. Brick floor. You know what? Oh. I don't really think I could have personally done better than what we see here. So overall, this is... Wow. Now make it an SVG. Oh, is it going to show it to us here? That would be so much simpler. That's honestly... That's pretty good, and that's actually it's actually good. I think this is a new SVG test that we've just found because this did really overall a fantastic job at recreating this image. So we've asked it to bring to life this wireframe, of course, of the hand-drawn Stevie Slappis portfolio, saying make it eccentric and something that will catch the eye of recruiters, but also make it look like the wireframe. So we want to obviously keep some of the source consistency here as well. All right, let's check out the portfolio. Wow. Okay, absolutely decimation of every other result that I've ever tried this with. I did tell it to make it eccentric. The fact that it has some form of ball implementation here is quite good. We have a tracer on the mouse. There are also some like quantum looking design aesthetic decisions. The scroll bar is even a gradient. And I do like the colors that use skills. This would definitely catch the eye of a recruiter. Now, look at the whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing would be up to the specific recruiter and the specific job that the person was interviewing for. But overall, I mean, I'm just trying to click on some of these. Okay, and it has GitHub, LinkedIn, email me, contact, about. This is very visually dense. Developer, problem solver, team player. Okay, I'm sorry. I very much like this. I'm quite pleased with this Stevie Slappis portfolio result, to be honest with you. Now, just for a more creativity and business-focused test, we're asking it that I have purchased 100 retro handhelds from Alibaba at a unit price of $17.35 shipped to me. I need a way to make these stand out in a market where there are obviously a lot of duplicates of this. The two options I have available to me are 1, 3D print external enclosures for them, adding $8 to my cost, and 2, putting them in custom packaging, adding a little under $6 to each unit. So let's see. This is a smart problem to solve before you list. Here's a business checklist to help you find your angle. Okay, so it's starting out by define your niche. So we need a specific audience. Research what adjacent communities are underserved. Ah, that's interesting. So then we could use that to make the custom shells. And it did. I've seen a few tables here. Not as many as the GPT OSS models, which basically communicate only in tables, but there is a decent amount, but they are obviously kind of valuable, especially for a query such as this. All right, so it basically just told us that we can curate like a collection, so market it as the platformer pack or 90s arcade edition with a combination themed external case and box, saying that that would kind of be a way to differentiate these in a sea of duplicates, which is correct. These would obviously be a very tough sell for someone who didn't already have like a brand that could allow them to sell these things. Validate before committing, and then decide your sales channel. So overall, and I did just ask for kind of a quick hit list basically of things to look at, and this did produce this. Now, this is a test that is obviously far more difficult to judge than something that is a piece of software we can run and see if it works or not, but I guess it's just a differentiation of tests aside from the normal software-based one. So I actually want to go ahead and take this a little further just to see how this can be creative in helping someone with almost like a drop shipping business. I've given it the Alibaba page for one of these specific retro handhelds. Don't worry, I didn't actually buy these. I'm not like subconsciously trying to sell them to viewers by doing this test. But I said, here's the listing. Please go ahead and give me a web page that I can use as a storefront to sell these, keeping in mind what we discussed above, like the custom cases, the themed box, and things of that sort. I also told it that it can use images by basically just pointing our website to this. I don't know how it would handle doing that or if it will, but we'll see what it does here. All right, that needed a little work to be something we could just actually look at online, but okay, so the reason I wanted to look at it here and not through the Claude artifact window is because it seems like it was blocking actually having the images pulled from AliExpress or Alibaba loading in. Now, obviously, it seems something may have gone awry right here in terms of the picture that loaded there, but we can get an actual look at this website now. So, all right, let's shop now. And then good, we have proper images right here. So pick your player, classic edition, most popular, limited, the collector's edition. And again, it's just pulling default photos from the actual product listing that we gave it on Alibaba. But this is something that, like, if you were a drop shipper or something like that, you could have this thing whip up a little storefront like this. It wouldn't necessarily be very difficult to wire this to like a back end or something to actually capture purchase information. And really, this would be like a prompt to drop shipped kind of website experience, and it just pulled statistics as well from the listing. So this was more of a, not more, but almost a test of its ability to do that. And some of the font here we see as well is very rasterized. I don't know if that's the right term, but there's lines in it, so it looks very retro and cool. We have some more product photos down here, built by collectors for collectors, quality testing, Pixel Vault, and it even put not affiliated with Nintendo, Sony, or Sega. Overall, aside 64 gigs included. Okay, aside from the issue there, this did a nice job. I do like the aesthetic style of the website, and it's just kind of a cool way to look at actually using this for something that would be more of an actual production use case, I suppose. All right, let's try the 3D printer simulation. So if you're familiar with some of my more recent videos, this is a new test that we have included where essentially it is tasked with making a web-based 3D printer simulation that emulates the actual way a 3D printer would go about printing an object, layer by layer, with an emphasis on realism. Now, it does really seem like there may be some form of, I don't know, rate limiting, but this did get a bit slower during our previous result, so I'll be interested to see if that was just a hiccup or if perhaps I've been using it more than the $100 a month would be worth on their end. So here's our 3D printer simulation. Wow, it even went ahead and gave a spool. There are some funky bits of lighting here, of course, as well. And we have the hot end. Now, did I see, I thought I saw somewhere. Okay, yep, it even has a little screen there, although it doesn't show anything. All right, so let's have it go ahead and let's do a cube. All right, let's just try it. And we have infill density as well, so interesting. That is quite a abstract cube, but something I'm going to say about this is the actual movement of the print head is more realistic in terms of how they kind of snap into different places. Now, printers have become significantly faster, and it is doing it layer by layer with some form of infill. Now, obviously, the downside of this would be it doesn't actually seem to properly be following the shape, and the shape is also not square. Let's try cylinder. Let's turn the speed up. Let's have some more infill. That's better, maybe. This is an interesting result. The print head doesn't really properly follow. That's flashing as indicating that it's warming up, I think. Okay, that's actually kind of cool. Oh, wow. There are pros and cons here. All right, the last thing we have not done. Oh, wow. Okay. Overall, this was an interesting result that I probably spent too much time looking at because I was somewhat confused by it, but at the same time, it did some things well, other things not so well. Overall, I think functionally Gemini 3 beat this in its test of this because it did actually show the infill and the path of the nozzle did move correctly corresponding to the shape it was drawing. Now for the final test before my patience expires with the reduction in speed that we've been noticing here is going to be a web-based flight simulator game where of course there is a loading screen with 3 selectable different planes, a fighter jet, a propeller plane, and then third is up to the model, so an option of its own choosing. Each plane must have realistic limitations on performance. They should be displayed graphically on the selection screen as well when we actually do go ahead and select one. Then it's basically a dogfighting, so it's a flight combat simulator game, and we'll see how it does. All right, let's check it out. All right, Sky Havoc. Fighter jet, propeller plane, or the gunship? I think for now, do the fighter jet. Launch mission. All right. This is good. Look at these clouds. This is very good. This is... probably don't need to say it that many times. Hull integrity. Can I zoom in at all? No, all right, that's okay though. This plane is fantastic. Now, I don't see any enemies. I have infinite ammo. That's incredible. All right, where are the enemies? This map is wonderful. Is there actual terrain there, or is that just an optical illusion from the way the water goes? I do believe there's, and what I mean by that is terrain height. So what's cool is we can't actually crash. Still though, I don't see any enemies. Space for boost. All right. Okay, and we can't really go much higher than that. This is frustrating because there's no enemies, but the game is great. This is fantastic. All right, let's try now the propeller plane launch mission. Oh, there are enemies. I saw them. And we even have the propeller spinning animation there. Oh. Some of the physics are a bit odd. We have boost for the propeller plane as well. Not as much boost, but... Okay, there's an enemy. This game is just like impossible to play. The enemies are too fast, and they're too small. All right, finally, let's try the gunship. Launch mission. Oh yeah, all right. So let's see if we can actually track down or hit an enemy. Oh, yes! I love the animation when we actually hit them. Unfortunately, I don't know that we'll be able to find any of the other ones. Bijan likes. No, but I do. This was an awesome result. I like this a lot. So that's going to conclude our first look and test of Claude Opus 4.5. Overall, as we saw, this was very fun to use. It seems to excel very much in front-end design. I was very enamored with the Stevie Slappis biography or portfolio website, as well as the Alibaba website that we made, and we got to try some other coding languages as well, besides just things that would run on the web, so that was always nice in terms of variability. Obviously, we had our flight game result, which was a ton of fun. This plane seems to have flown too high into the sky. Our 3D printer simulation was abstract at best, but it looked kind of cool. This website I very much enjoyed. The image that it mistakenly pulled here was an issue from Alibaba on their end, so not from this, so that's cool to see. The Stevie Slappis portfolio website, fantastic. WebOS, as to be expected, it's pretty simple at this point, but it did a nice and decent and clean job, and whatever else we happen to go through in this video. So really, that is going to conclude our first look and test of Claude Opus 4.5. Overall, it seems to excel very much at front-end design, but I think in an agentic coding scenario, this thing would be an absolute force, so that is perhaps something to explore in the near future. With that, that's going to wrap it up. If you have any questions, please feel free to subscribe before you leave them, and thanks for watching.